Okay. Yeah. Again, thanks for joining us. I'm just gonna make sure everything's working. Good. All right. Looks like it is. I just have to double check. Huh. Oh, I had the volume on my. Okay, that's why. Good. All right. Yeah. So thanks for watching. We will. I guess while we're waiting, I'll just go through some thanking of the people who make it possible for us to do this. Big thanks to Yankee Bookstore for their sponsorship this year of History Chats, as well as to you, all of the members of the Historical Society that make it possible as well. If you're watching this, if you're enjoying the programs we do every week and you're not already a member, it's a great way to support local history. And you get to some benefits like our newsletter, the one again. Last issue, we had a fun scavenger hunt as part of the architectural sort of area of the Wassa area for preservation, historic preservation month. And yeah, that's something that you get if you're a member, and and the satisfaction of supporting these programs. So if you want to become a member and you're not, please feel free to give us a call or go to our website marathoncountyhistory.org, and there's more information there. Yeah, I don't know, Gary, do I want to go and just jump in with the results here? Speaking of the scavenger hunt, so on Saturday, Gary and I did a little live stream where we went through all of the answers. So we went, image by image, and Gary, told us about the history, or little snippets here and there about the background for the buildings. But we actually did get quite a few submissions. So with that, I'm going to and we're going to announce the winners right now. So Gary, if you want to take it away.
Well, thank you, Ben. So it was great fun. I think a lot of people reports of great fun with regard to our scavenger hunt of local historical features throughout the city of Wausau, downtown, as well as some other places. There was some when we put this scavenger hunt together, we meant some things to be hard and some things to be a little bit easier, and congratulations to the people that sent their entries in. Thank you. I know that some people just felt really just fun in doing it and not necessarily sending their entries in. So, but we did have some winners. They completed all 22 of the images, and they were all right. And we had to draw 1, 2, and 3. So number 1 was Sandra Hintz. Number 2 was Sue Wolfsagel. Number 3 was Michael and Katie Klapperick. So those 3 can pick up their prizes at the Woodson History Center Tuesday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4:30. Allison will be at the main desk to help you with that. And we at this point thank our sponsors of the prizes. We were really grateful that we were able to offer some prizes with regard to the winners, the 3 winners of the scavenger hunt. It was great fun, and we look forward to doing things like this in the future. If you have any kinds of thoughts as to what we should do, we certainly want to move into the county. So look forward to more little bit of teasers, a little bit of quizzes with regard to our history of Marathon County. There's a lot of good stuff here, and we try to, not only in our history chats and history speaks, we try to present this great variety of history features, artifacts of Marathon County. That's what we do here at the Historical Society. So thank you for joining us. And again, thanks to our three winners, Sandra Hintz, Sue Wolfslegel, and number 3, Michael and Katie Klapperick. So those can pick up their prizes at the Woodson History Center when we're open Tuesday through Friday. So we welcome you to come on in. And thanks again to everybody who entered and everybody who had a little bit of fun in trying to do it. There were some foolers, and I think some people got tricked up by a few images. But quite a few did succeed in all 22.
Yeah, I
So
think we had 12 perfect scores or
Right.
something like that, right?
something
Yeah.
like that. So that
So,
was it
Well
was
done,
great
well done.
fun. It was great fun, and thanks for everyone who took up the challenge and went to Marathon Park and to Oak Island and to a variety of places in downtown Wausau. So thanks again.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess with that, we can jump right into the program. So Gary's going to continue. So now we're into the actual history chats for today. So I'll just hand it over. There you go.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Well, this month we're celebrating. June is Dairy Month, and Marathon County, of course, celebrates that with great vigor. We really treasure our dairy heritage in Marathon County. Sorry to say, a lot of that heritage is starting to be diminished, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But first, June is Dairy Month, and we try to celebrate that. And we always celebrate the memory of Bledsoe's cheese curds. Cheese curds have been part of our culture for who knows how long, as part of our cheese heritage here in Marathon County. So I want to mention that the history of dairying and bringing milk to market and a variety of little stories that go with this is a book unto itself. So the history chats really is just a little brief snippet, really, at trying to capture some of the larger stories, as well as the individual stories that make up our dairy heritage here in Marathon County. Dairy Month, so I think there's always dairy breakfast, and last year threw us into a little quandary, but this year we're going full into celebration, so that's a good thing. And of course, we've always celebrated milk. The farmers of Marathon County have always been a great part of our heritage. And they say, show us your milk mustache, show us the milk that always been a part of that history. So as part of that, there was this headline in the Wausau paper back in 1926. And I'll go into those statistics a little bit later. But again, Marathon County has always been a great cheese and dairy county in Wisconsin and throughout the nation and the world even. So I guess we were always just reinforcing that claim that we have perhaps we're not only the dairy state, we're also the dairy county. But let's go back a little bit. So this back in the day, the milk cans were brought to small little cheese houses throughout Marathon County, but it took a little bit. So the first farmers coming into Marathon County weren't really dairy farmers, but eventually in the 1850s and 1860s. The word started to get out that farmers could make more money with milk, with dairying, and with plowing the fields for wheat or whatever grain they wanted to do it. It was said that farmers should turn their how did they say it? Turn their, substitute the cow for the plow. So the cow meant, so instead of, let's bring the cow back into our farms instead of that plow. And the cows did come into Marathon County. The first cow came into Marathon County in the 1840s as one individual cow, but then eventually the farmers started to come in, and they would bring, and the cheese house, the local cheese house, was the place to bringing that milk into. I just show some scenes here for a variety of, horse and buggy, most likely bringing the cans of milk into the cheese house early in the morning after the first milking, because most likely they would have kept the evening milking in coolers, and then in the morning they would be bringing their milk into the local cheese house. And the local cheese houses were all over. This is just a part of Marathon County, but you can see they were scattered throughout from the town of Hull all the way down to Bergen. They were all over Marathon County. This is just a little bit of a glimpse, but all those little marks indicate a cheese house. This was perhaps the easiest way to convert that milk into cheese and to creameries, because it was really one way of preserving the product of that milk. And once that milk got into the cheese house, they would be put into cheese boxes. Cheese boxes were that deliverable by which cheese came out of the cheese factory. These cheese boxes were also being made in Marathon County. So we really did have a great industry in the dairy products themselves. Eventually, of course, the farmers in Marathon County moved past the horse and buggy, and they eventually moved into the automobile era with trucks coming into the cheese factory. This is the Raycall farm. And this is a Reiner's cheese factory. Again, developing fairly extensive cheese factories throughout. They just weren't a little small building, but they were extensive cheese factories throughout. And you can, we'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. But then eventually, like I said before, it became a more modern, moving those milk cans into factories from trailers or whatever it would take to move those cans into the local dairy. I want to spend a little bit of time with some individual stories. And I mentioned this from a city directory in the 1920s, calling attention to Marathon Creamery. The story of Marathon Creamery really goes back really early, and unfortunately that story is hard to find. But they were in Marathon, and they were also in Wausau, manufacturers of dairy products, wholesale distributors of butter, eggs, and cheese. So this is telling us that not only were these cheese factories, but like, for instance, a creamery like Marathon in Marathon City was a manufacturer also of butter. So we don't see we see other dairies, Heinz and Wasser Creamery, a variety of different products, but the Marathon Creamery goes way back, earlier than that, way back in Marathon City. And I think that is that history in itself, but the history is hard to find, but this is one evidence that they were indeed making butter, eggs, bringing eggs as well as cheese into the marketplace. And with regard to, and this is a little clipping from the Wausau paper, Marathon ships tank car of milk to Chicago daily. So the influence of Marathon County's dairy products was very felt throughout the nation. So the Marathon Creamery here in Marathon and Wausau sent milk cars down to Chicago. So their market was throughout the entire Middle West and most likely even the nation. And this was their milk. This was the fresh milk from Marathon County to Chicago every day. This was, as you noted, the date 1926. And here, later on, an article in the newspaper, Cheese Feeds Our Economy. Industry accounts for 90% of area's milk production. And the article goes on to talk about Marathon Cheese, Kraft Cheese on Town Line Road, and I think there was another, but it goes to show that eventually throughout all these years, even into the 1990s, milk and cheese was a great instigator of our economy here in Marathon County. Again, became the dairy product industry became quite modernized. Here's the Kraft plant, as well as the bottling plant here. So we were bottlers of milk, we were packagers of cheese. That industry just kept on going throughout a good part of the 1900s with increased automation. And one of those places in town, in the city of Wausau, was the Stieber Dairy on 6th Street in Wausau. The little brick building was the original one, then they eventually had to add on, which you see on your in the center and on your left. But the main office was on 6th Street, and it was quite a feat unto itself. It was the article went on to talk about their the 21 people employed by the Stieber Dairy Company, a flourishing business that has built quality and service, making ice cream, cottage cheese, buttermilk, all the variety of dairy products that we came to associate with the dairy industry here in Wausau and Marathon County. So this was a good indicator of what the dairies coming to make and to produce. And Stieber Dairy was one of the larger ones here in Marathon County. Steady growth marked the history of Stieber. They started out on this little dairy store on 6th Street, and then they eventually would move into that larger store on 6th Street. Again, advertising, this is what they did, their cream top. Some people may remember the deliveries of this milk to the front door. This was one of the many memories of Stieber and some of the other dairies delivering milk to the front door every morning. And you also had that little bit of cream on top. Another large story that we have in Marathon County is the history of Colby cheese. This takes a lot of history also, but it starts over in a little community of Colby on the west side of Marathon County. You may want to argue whether Colby is in Clark County or Marathon County, but for us today, we're claiming Colby and Colby cheese as part of Marathon County's history. It's quite a distinguished part of our history. There's an historical marker over in Colby indicating the great cheese that was developed there. This cheese factory in Colby, beginning in the late 1890s, the manufacture of this specific type of cheese. And a Colby cheese, basically was made to fill a demand for a soft textured cheese. They were saying that the cheddar cheese, or the more popular cheddar cheese at that time, was too dry. So they increased the moisture, and thus the Colby cheese was made and taken from this little community in Marathon County. So we're quite proud of it. It's a strong part of our dairy history here in Marathon County. This is an article that was back in the late 1930s with regard to how Mr. Steinwein started his factory back in the, it's quite a history. It deserves a larger story sometime, and perhaps at some point in time we'll be able to tell this larger story of the Colby cheese here in Marathon County. But eventually, as the story that we'll be telling soon was that the Colby cheese factory closed in 1983 after 100 years of service in that little community. It closed its doors, which another smaller story here in Wausau was the Lemke old-fashioned brick. Now, Lemke's brick cheese became another famous cheese throughout Wisconsin and the nation. People would travel to Marathon County just to get a good sample of that brick cheese. That Lemke's had their plant on Fifth Avenue on the west side. But they eventually, they also closed production. So the sad story, which we'll be seeing here, is the gradual loss of our cheese and dairy industry here in Marathon County. This was in 1985. Lemke Cheese is closing its production plant. And then also little cheese factories like the Sunset Cheese Factory on Highway 52 east of Wausau closed. Sunset's on Landmark Cheese Factory. The milk plant closes its doors. The White House Milk Division plant of Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company in Marathon felt the pinch of changing times in the dairy business, and they too closed in 1970. And then of course in the city, the Golden Guernsey plant on the 2nd Avenue in the Kleinheinz Dairy building eventually would close down, and that too in 1999 would close its doors. The last dairy in Wausau, and right now the one would be the Mullins cheese factory. Would be the sole cheese factory in the Marathon County. I want to mention the foremost whey factory in the south side of Rothschilds, because this was a whey factory that was started there by Foremost Foods. So they used the milk and producing of whey. They used the whey in producing of lactose. So again, another use of that milk, of that dairy industry here in Marathon County. This was their factory on the south side of Rothschilds in Wausau. And of course, I show this slide because Bledsoe's cheese factory, a little bit north, I should say west of Little Chicago on A, closed its doors several years ago. But again, the reminder of those famous cheese curds coming out of cheese factories throughout Marathon County throughout. So if you went to Frankfort or Sunset or Bledsoe's, they all had famous cheese curds that were a distinguished part of Marathon County's dairy industry for many, many years. But the whole story is told a little bit more extensively here at our historical exhibit, Milking Time, the Evolution of the Dairy Industry in Marathon County, in our exhibit space here at the Marathon County Historical Society in the Woodson Center. So if you want to see more artifacts, more history of this, the dairy industry in Marathon County, come on down to the Historical Society of the Woodson History Center and see this Milking Time exhibit that presents a great history of our dairy industry here that we're all quite proud of, that has been a distinguished part of our economic base for many, many years, a strong indicator of the farming aspect of this county. It's really been important, not only the farmers on the 80 acres, but the milk coming into the local communities, those cheese houses, those cheese factories, Stieber Dairy, all those other dairies that manufactured all those other dairy products that we used here in Marathon County and shipped out to the rest of the nation. So again, a tribute to our workers, the farmers throughout Marathon County. So with that, I turn it back to Ben. And hope you enjoyed this. And again, a reminder to come on down and see our Milking Time exhibit. So thank you.